Great, we can start. A very good evening, all of you. We welcome you for today's webinar on low visual aids management in 21st century. I wish to invite Rajesh Vadda sir to introduce our first speaker today. I'll be muting everybody for time being and then allow one by one. Second. Yes, Rajesh sir, please. Rajesh sir, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this special session which we have. Unfortunately, the first speaker is our well-known Professor Monica Chaudhary, who is director of the School of Health Sciences, Ansal University. She has earlier been the educator who has been awarded FIACL Lifetime Achievement FIACL, and she's been having her post as head of department at Amity University also, and she's well known for her contribution to education of optometry in India. Let us welcome Professor Monica Chaudhary to start her talk.
I think that post is putting this. Ollie, do I have the right? Is my presentation visible?
Yes, exactly. We can see and hear it.
Okay, I think. Okay. So very good evening, everybody. And I'm really excited about today's session because it's not me who will be talking much today. It'll be somebody whom we are going to learn through also during the session. There'll be so much that each one of us will take home today. But before we introduce our key speakers here today, what I wanted to share with you is just a small study which we had done, which was done with our master students, Mohammad Kausar Jamal and Zishan. And we brought in some facts when we just wanted to survey out what are the knowledge and awareness of ophthalmologists and optometrists in low vision services. Few slides just to share the information of what is the status of these things. I think the magnitude slide I'll skip off because I believe Prashant will take you through a lot of it, and we all have been going through numbers. The information that we have is India is actually very poor status in terms of data and figures. We really do not know. We have estimates so far what we have seen. So the overall understanding is there is very poor low vision awareness in the country. It's because there are not many studies, but of course we all would be sitting here to say yes, hardly people would know about it. And the basic, sorry, the slides are being blocked by the waiting room. There are many people who are waiting for low vision devices. And what is happening in our country is the gap is between the evaluation, prescription, and then where to buy these devices from. Worst is if I have given a device, who's the rehabilitation person? We have very limited blind schools and they mostly cater to 100% blindness. Something which is midway is lost in between and they would not like to go to the blind services. We are not actually as practitioners focusing on the fact that this individual in totality with visual impairment, with the clinic devices that we have done, have we made a change in his life? Ollie, because of the waiting room people in it, I think it's responding. I can't see the screen myself then.
Ma'am, that's what it will disturb. I'll lock the meeting room.
Please block because then it blocks my screen and I can't read it myself.
Done. I've done so.
So this survey data which I am showing is done in from December 16 to 2017. and we had flashed the survey form to all eye care practitioners, about 1400. And this was surveys which were even going to conferences, meetings, and wherever. So out of those 1400, we approached ophthalmologists, we approached the optometrist also. This itself is an interesting figure where we found only 27 ophthalmologists were willing to respond to low vision. The moment one would go and say, sir, there is a small data or information we request for your time for low vision, most of the ophthalmologists refused. They said that, sorry, I am not well aware of it and I would not like to participate. Some tried to fill in the form midway. They said, sorry, I can't do this. They gave up. So ultimately, we just had the small number of 27 ophthalmologists who filled in. And we got information from 263 optometrists across all states. And this is, however, we had certain states which had very high number. States like Punjab, Rajasthan, Tripura, Gujarat, and Goa, Bihar. We had very few numbers who responded to it. Typically because these are actually the places where we find low vision services are not well taken care of. The slides are taking their time to move. Okay. So the common causes of low vision which these practitioners reported in their clinic, most of them said that we see retinitis pigmentosa. The second percentage major in their clinics was ARMD, followed by glaucoma and diabetic retinopathy. The others were very limited and not much is seen across, which is the referral thing which comes in. So the in part of low vision management, we asked them, most of them, and that's where I'm not describing, it's this key line here. Most of them prescribed best spectacle correction, almost 62%. So when a low vision patient is referred, visually impaired, all they did was give a best possible spectacle correction. That was all that is done in name of low vision service. And in prescribing the devices, 77% are being prescribed as hand magnifier, spectacle magnifier, or stand magnifier. The non-optical devices is merely 15% of prescription. Electronic devices, 3%. Taking together the other devices, category 4%, and telescopes only for 1%. So if you look in, the major thing is either they would just do a spectacle prescription, best corrected again, or would prescribe a magnifier, which is like a hand or stand, and we barely see the other technologies being used. And that's where we bring in this. I think the book that has been written is all changed over. The world is not talking about it, but we are talking about it. We also wanted them to tell us what is the visual acuity criteria for it. However, a major percentage could give us that definition of 6/18 and less, but a lot of them were not sure, and you could find varied responses coming into it. That means even the definition of low vision was not clear to many of them. Talking about patients, why your patients don't want to come in, the barriers, they said the patients are not interested and motivated. The devices are expensive. There are non-availability of low vision centers, and some may be referred from one state to the other. The devices which were prescribed were not cosmetically acceptable to many of our patients. So now talking about sorry, let me just bring. So practitioners' perspective, how do they see how we can improve the low vision services? They said the availability of low vision devices at low cost, they wanted it, and major 71% answers it. They said that if we could have more low-cost, low-vision devices, they could do much better for their patients. Many of them, 60% almost, wanted that if we could have low vision as exhaustively covered in the curriculum. It is a part of the optometry graduate curriculum, but they feel it has not been covered well during their trainings. Many thought if you could give us trainings, maybe we could add it. They felt that awareness should be brought in the practitioners. That was 90% of it. Now, what do you mean by practitioners? They were actually saying that if the eye care practitioner or the ophthalmology hospitals knew more about low vision, maybe the referral system would become better. So the barriers were, 43% is not able to satisfy their patients. So that's why they're not happy about their practice. They felt 15% felt low vision is not effective. 30% felt they don't have a manpower. This is typically that they're busy into other things and they don't want to have time. They don't have time for low vision. One more, 1/4 of them think it is not a profitable business. The devices are expensive, so they cannot sell, almost 40%. Low vision care is time consuming, is almost 50% talking about it. So he may spend more time into where he gets more money rather than becoming a low vision specialist. Major chunk talks about availability and lack of training and awareness. And awareness is something which was surprising. They themselves admitted that we do not have much knowledge and training on these kind of things. So this referral system was also one of the barriers which was picked up. And the number and figures on general estimation, they all said only 7.6% would send the patients to other hospital for low vision assessment. That means if there was a low vision patient and you had 618 or less, it remains where it is, and they would not even be bothered to send them to a low vision practice where they can be benefited. So awareness about organizations, if these practitioners are asked, do you know about vision rehabilitation services? 60% said yes. And then we had a detailed rehab questionnaire, which I'm not bringing in much now of time because we like to listen to Prashant more, is talking about all vague things that came in, but they thought they knew about rehab. Some only knew about a blind school or others. But if they were asked, do you know about the disabilities, the benefits, the other things, they were practically zero answers. And this was the slide which was actually graphs on it. So majority was not sure about what was in for visually impaired in terms of rehabilitation. So there was a mixed result on even the knowledge levels. And interestingly, as I said, most of the ophthalmologists refused to respond to this survey. This itself said, and we went to ophthalmology conferences where there are thousands of ophthalmologists who we approached, gave their consent, but dropped in between to say, oh, low vision, sorry, I won't be comfortable to answer that. So far, so the situation is very sad and confusing. We have limited people who are seriously working in the low vision care. You can really count them on fingers. We have good hospitals and tertiary care centers, some of them which are really doing very good job. But a center in Hyderabad or in Gujarat or in AIIMS or somewhere cannot actually cater on to bring in 1.3 billion people and the numbers of visually impaired. We're talking of only blind and we're not talking of that 6/18 and less. So much so has to be done for these visually impaired people. And so much more has changed and evolved in these technologies. The low vision devices have moved on into the next level. Our own lifestyle has moved on into electronic devices, and we are just looking at those magnifiers right now. So that was major that I wanted to bring in a thought. It's now actually taking it further from here. What I briefed was a sad story and sad situation. Some of us may be doing good work, but not everywhere it is happening. So to bring into you, I have Meenakshi here. Meenakshi is herself a visually impaired person who's gone through challenges in her life, how it had given her ups and downs, and the credentials are she's a successful person now. We would like to listen to her story, and we would invite you. We are all fortunate here. Within our hearts, Meenakshi, we are very grateful to you for coming in and opening up your story to us. So I hand over the mic to Meenakshi now. Ollie, Meenakshi has to come in now.
She is through NAB Delhi login.
NAB Delhi's Prashant, I think.
Yes. Meenakshi is logged in. She told me. I don't know what is the
Her
login
name
ID.
is not flashing in the list.
No, she is not there. I don't know the name. So probably.
Meenakshi, if you can unmute yourself and come up yourself.
No, she was not able to do that. So she has to write her name in the chat box, please.
Okay. Okay, so you can let her in if she comes in a little later. So Rajesh sir, I would request you to introduce Prashant, and let's have Prashant talk in, and then we can have Meenakshi come in later.
Thank you, Monica. That was really good. Again, Rajesh Wadhwa here, and I have a great pleasure in introducing an excellent person. This, what I'm going to talk about, Mr. Prashant Ranjan Verma, is a very short description of his achievements. And he is, again, a success story like Meenakshi is. He is an accessibility specialist, innovator, trainer, and disability activist, offering more than 18 years of experience in diverse fields. Mr. Verma has experience of conducting web accessibility, accessible digital books, production, and assistive technology trainings in India, Europe, Africa, and many countries. So if we go into little detail about what all he has achieved, his qualifications include CPA, CC, O-level, MSW, PG diploma in NGO management, DAISY in trainer, DIP in diploma in assistive technology, CC. And what does all this mean? To us, it means Mr. Verma has struggled through life, and he is General Secretary of National Association for the Blind, Delhi, a premier NGO working for the empowerment of persons with blindness, low vision, and multiple disabilities. Mr. Verma is independent consultant to the DAISY Consortium for technical support and software testing, responsible for conducting training in digital talking books production and providing support to libraries and publishers, taking up inclusive publishing worldwide. Mr. Verma has conducted face-to-face training on information accessibility from 2003 onwards. Till date, in more than now 25 countries, which include US, Switzerland, France, Portugal. That's a long list, 25 countries he's been trained. Apart from conducting online training and technical support for many other countries from all continents. Mr. Verma has prepared numerous manual step-by-step tutorials and videos on tools useful for accessible book production and reading. Mr. Verma is a certified professional in accessibility core competencies, that is CPACC, and a member of International Association of Accessibility Professionals. We welcome you, Mr. Verma. It is wonderful to be listening to you today. I know everyone is very eager, and I won't stand between you and rest of the audience. Mr. Verma, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. I would like to begin by sharing a little information about the organization I am representing today, the National Association for the Blind, NAB Delhi. So this organization is based in Delhi, but it has a large network. We have branches in most parts of the country. We are known for conceptualizing and establishing the integrated school education system for the visually impaired. We are known for introducing computer training to the blind as early as 1995. And we have also introduced the digital books or digital e-books to the various countries in the South Asia region. I would have liked Meenakshi to talk a little more about this, but by the time she comes in, at our Delhi office, we have assistive technology experience zone and a resource center. We are also running a toll-free helpline for everyone in the country. We also provide technology training, that is training to use the computers, various assistive devices, the smartphones to people of all age groups, like blind and low vision people, young students, job seekers, senior citizens, every one of them come to our center to get these kinds of training. We also have a very large digital library, a Braille press, and there are several other activities. Today, actually, I would like to focus more on the subject. So Monica Madam has already given some information, but internationally, as you know, there are the estimate is that there are 285 million people with visual impairments. Among them, there is a large section of people with low vision. In India, we don't have reliable data, but according to the census, 6.2 million people have visual impairments. Out of that, 5.4 million are probably people with weak eyesight. According to the World Health Organization, however, this number is much more, and India is said to have almost 20% of the visually impaired population in the world. It could be as much as 12 million or even 15 million. I am actually one of those. I am a person with low vision. I had good eyesight till the age of 19, and then due to a rare kind of a fungal infection, I lost around 80% eyesight. And but thanks to assistive technology, my life turned around. I was fortunate to get training at the best institutions, and as you heard in my in the reading of my profile, I have got opportunities to work in so many different countries and so many different fields. If we talk about status of the visual impaired in India, again, unfortunately, the figures are not so reliable, but there are certain surveys and certain estimates. It is believed that less than 20% of them have education beyond class 10. So the literacy and education among the visually impaired as compared to the whole population is like very low. And employment data is also very dismal. Less than 10% of them are expected to have regular employment. However, there are some like a few bright spots. In India, the large majority of the visually impaired people are not so well educated. They don't have much resources, but there are a few who have achieved quite a lot. We have highly capable software developers among the visually impaired. They are working with leading companies in various capacities. They have even joined companies in the US and UK. They are working as software developers, testers, architects. In the recent times, various governmental and private sector jobs in India have also opened up, and we have people who have done MBA from prestigious institutions like IIM Ahmedabad or Indore and Lucknow and Bangalore and so on. These people are working in various companies in good capacities. Blind people have done CFA, chartered accountancy, they are lawyers, professors, bankers, and so on. But at the same time, as I told you, the vast majority, unfortunately, doesn't have adequate education and resources. So in the last few years, there has been remarkable development in assistive technologies that are helping people with disabilities, in particular people with blindness and low vision, and they have virtually changed the definition of disability. So things which I could not do myself after my visual impairment, I can do all that easily. So we have text-to-speech software which reads out information on the screen. I am using this software right now, and that is what is allowing me to make this presentation. TTS works in combination with screen reading software. Thankfully, the mainstream devices these days, like each one of you have got a iPhone or Android phone, the screen reader or the magnifier or the TTS is already there. People can just buy any smartphone and just activate the screen reader or the magnifier, and those visual impaired people can use all the apps almost independently. Then the OCR technology, the technology which allows people to take photo of a printed material and read. And this technology has progressed quite a lot. It is now portable. It is handy. Even our mobile phones can take photograph of any printed material and read. And then we have artificial intelligence coming up in a big way. It is describing pictures to blind people. It is helping blind people identify objects. It is helping them in mobility and navigation. So what is the availability in India? So international scenario, as I told you, most of these technologies have been developed outside India, mostly in the US and Europe and other developed countries. In India, we have all the software tools, as like the mobile platform, Android and iOS. It is like a universal platform. Anything which gets developed outside is immediately almost available to us. So thankfully, we have access to all the latest apps as other countries. But then as far as the hardware is concerned, India is lagging behind. Most of the hardwares, like say, for example, for people with low vision, various types of digital magnifiers, reading machines have been designed, and they are very, very expensive for us. They have to be imported. Few companies in India, startups, have just come up recently in the last 1 or 2 years. They have been incubated mostly by IITs, IIT Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, and they have recently released a few products, and this is a promising development. We can probably expect more assistive technology from India soon. All right. Probably these things will come up more in the question answer section, but very briefly, I believe in the audience we have researchers or developers, people who are looking towards taking up some challenges. If that is the case, then what are the gaps right now for people with blindness or low vision? So the text to speech and OCR, which are like very, very essential for all the disabled persons, they are not available for all Indian languages. For example, a senior citizen can have the newspaper read aloud to him if it is in English or maybe in Hindi, but not in Odia or Assamese or many other languages at this time. There are wonderful mobile apps like Seeing AI and others, with which you can take the photo of any object and it will be read out and described. But yeah, only if it is in English or maybe French or Spanish, but not Indian languages. So a lot needs to be done in that area. A lot of development is required, and probably that development should happen in India. We cannot expect people outside to develop technologies compatible to our languages. There is a need to reduce costs by manufacturing technologies or devices in India, mainly the hardware devices. Most of it is currently imported. And then there is a need to design something similar to some of the artificial intelligence based wonderful tools that have come up. So like, for example, you people might be knowing that this OrCam, it is a small device that one can wear with spectacles maybe, and it has a camera and it can identify everything in front of the visually impaired person, read out printed text, even recognize people's faces, help in crossing the road, and so on. Aira is a similar device, very popular now in the US and Canada and some European countries, but they are very expensive. Currently, their service is limited to those countries only, and we need solutions in India, maybe similar to those. So I will kind of conclude and then be available for question and answers. If you'd like to help us in any way, because I represent an organization, a charitable organization, mainly dependent on support from the society, from the community, and is struggling at this time of crisis actually. People are welcome to support us by making any kind of donation, any kind of voluntary work, or you could just probably inform, or if you come across any visually impaired person, you could connect them to us. We will try to help them in whichever way possible. You could distribute our toll-free number, that the helpline number, or promote our Facebook, through which we try to advertise all our services and programs. Okay, so all right. So I think I will stop here. If Meenakshi is available, she can probably add something, or else I'm available for your questions.
Meenakshi, I think we have not been. Oli, if you can even open up the waiting room if she's there and check in. Okay. So Prashant, there is a lot more to know about these assistive technologies. And I fully agree with you. And I was part of that Oxide device clinical as a clinical advisor. I'm still is. And we have a center of excellence for training at our campus. And we really find when we want to invest in these devices to bring in as trials to our patients, it's very, very difficult to import them, number one. So if I do a trial, what is the channel of distributorship, which is very difficult. So we really do not have Indian distributors who can bring in, and as an individual, we cannot be getting the things imported around from them. So the patients, I feel the whole science is changing and we need to move on to this. Of course, the role of hand magnifier, stand magnifier, and spectacle magnifier remains there for certain tasks, but there is so much into it when we need these assistive technologies into it. So what is your stake on talking about how is this barrier of practitioners knowing it? Practitioners have to invest in these devices to demonstrate to their patients. And if they demonstrate, where do they go to advise them to buy it from?
Yes. So recently, actually, we had done some work with All India Institute of Medical Sciences and Shroff Hospital. So they had similar questions. I believe the low vision rehabilitation centers in various hospitals or the various medical practitioners, it's not possible for them to actually buy and keep all these different devices to show to their patients. Even if they buy, they need somebody who can explain the use or help people evaluate whether or not it is useful for them. So we need like kind of resource centers, maybe the leading NGOs in different regions, they need to actually come up or they need to be supported. So for at our institution, just last 3rd December, we have established this Beyond Eyes Assistive Technology Experience Zone, where we are trying to procure all the latest devices, at least one device in each and every category, for low vision, for blind, for senior citizen, children, everybody. Devices useful in education, in employment, recreation, everything. Like even some latest new things like, say for example, even the smart speakers like Alexa and Google Home, they are useful for people with blindness or low vision, or there are smart TVs or smart appliances. So we are keeping them in our center, so people maybe in Delhi region or at least can be guided to come to us. We have people who know about all those devices. They can actually help them try it out if they want to. Say for example, people with low vision, people can try out different types of digital magnifiers maybe, or reading machines, and maybe choose what they want. Now, as far as distribution is concerned and purchase is concerned, like few companies or organizations are there in India. They have been doing their bit. Recently, one organization has set up an online shop, kind of like an Amazon kind of a thing, which is accessible from everywhere. They have products from various manufacturers, so that can be at least one solution, or people can at least go there and check. They can order and things will be delivered to them at their homes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to bring in some highlights. I had my graduation at AIIMS, and I worked at AIIMS, and I took my voluntary retirement from AIIMS. I established the Low Vision Center there until 2009 when I left it. Now, the unfortunate part, if there was a low vision patient during the time that I was also handling it, the waiting period was 6 weeks. We had patients who were referred from outstation, and you cannot give them 6 weeks, they would go back. Now, third was when you have private hospitals. So let's say an ex-hospital, which is an independent private hospital, they would not like to send their, that's again a perception, but they would not send the patient to All India Institute of Medical Sciences or these government centers for a very basic, simple fact. These practitioners do not want to lose their retina patients or pathology patients to these hospitals. So there was a referral system which will not come in, despite knowing that, yes, this is the center which would have something. So these are not the solutions I feel for the country. Number one, AIIMS cannot cater into the kind of population or the numbers we are talking to. Second, one of the barrier studies that we did was, so if I do have patients who till date come in from Bombay for a device trial to me, or they come in from a remote area, even to Uttarkashi, this person walked into our center. Unfortunately, when he walks into our center, we realize we have nothing much to do for you or something. Now, again, I need him to send to a rehab center. Now, the rehab center at one place is not something which can be done. You have NABs in all the states, and just talking to AIIMS or building up a referral center there will not be the solution. If you know the process of AIIMS, one has to go through the OPD, one has to go through the retina surgeon, one has to go to the referral. There are 3 visits which he makes to finally get an appointment for low vision service. And then he gets an appointment for 2 months, which I'm talking 10 years back when I took my retirement. And it is still large numbers, which is now. So I think there has to be a perception which we have to talk. The third thing you said was online buying. Now, if people start buying from online, how does the connect with the optometrist? There are patients which we have seen were diagnosed retinitis pigmentosa at the age of 20, 25. They're 45 now. They've never gone back to an ophthalmologist because they've always been told nothing can be done. Now, when they buy the online device, who's going to teach them, rehabilitate them? How would they understand what do they need and what is good for them and what is not good for them?
Yes. So that online thing is, I think, useful when somebody has already visited some rehabilitation center and maybe identified a device, and then they want to buy. So okay, instead of actually going to that company's office in Mumbai or Dehradun, they actually maybe probably order and get it. And it is useful for those, like, say, for replacements, like people are already using something and then they need it again. So online is of course useful, but yeah, I mean, it's not the solution to everything. And there is definitely a lack of training centers and resource centers. The NGOs are trying to do their bit, but yes, I mean, we NGOs at one point of time, we tried to kind of take into account like how many people we are catering to all together. And unfortunately, the number was like something like maybe 50,000 or 1 lakh only. Whereas as we are speaking, so there are millions of visually impaired people in the country. So yes, I mean, we are not able to serve the vast majority. That is obviously a challenge. I mean, it's too huge a task for like one small organization like us. We are just trying.
Yeah, I think we got back Miss Minakshi into the forum, so we can connect her.
Yes.
Uh, so is Meenakshi hearing us?
I think yes, Miss Minakshi, please.
Meenakshi,
Hello, and
thank you so
sorry for the
much and
delay,
welcome
everyone.
joining into this platform. We were really keen here. We've already introduced that you have gone through certain challenges in your life and how you overcome that. We would love to listen to you and what do you want to bring in the information as a person who has
So, to begin with, first of
the
all,
worst hardships.
yeah, am I clear and audible? Yeah. To begin with, first, I would actually like to thank the forum to bring up the difficulties being faced by low vision. Apparently, out of the major chunk of the visually impaired population is low vision and not blind. But unfortunately, it is either able bodied or blind. So the problems increase the moment you're not even notified. Like my earlier bit, in the earlier bits, ma'am also said that there are very few things still being achieved for the low vision. As a child, I was it's back in the 80s when we were studying in the regular schools of the city, no matter how much facilities, the affordability, but lack of awareness, which still prevails, I must say, though. Um, Although, I mean, there were policies, there were things which were available, but there were no means by which the people could know. And unfortunately, I feel that people like us who are in the metropolitan cities of our country do not have complete awareness to what about the major population of our country which remains in the suburbs. Now, I I was a person who could not even complete my schooling uh, because of lack of accessible devices availability. There were magnifiers which were being given to us by a few doctors. There were a few different kind of telescopes or different kind of spectacles which were cosmetically not right as ma'am just specified, or which had their own definitely had their own limitations. So yes, after years, I think this is a problem which most of the low visioners come through, because this is a problem which comes at no age. At any age, you can have a vision loss. You really do not know when you start comparing the world of what you have seen and what you're able to see right now, or you are in that delusion of what you are being able to see correct or not. Fortunately, today, after almost 2 decades of nothing in my life, I approached the National Association for the Blind and approached for a language called Braille, because that was the only thing which people usually say that visually impaired should know. That was the time when we were introduced to technology and the tables turned around. From being a student, I could be a mentor or a working professional, but every day which I spend today, is everybody as lucky as me? Is everybody as lucky to reach the right place? Is everybody as sane to understand whether technology or picking up new things can turn over their lives? So we always say that doctors actually act as actually as gods for everyone. That is this is one segment. Doctors are one society who everyone would believe, who the poorest of the poor, the illiterates, and the mighty rich, the educated, even too. So yes, we need a lot of your support to till now, researchers have not reached a level where probably most of us can be cured medically, but all of you definitely have the potential to recommend us to the right places, to help us reach the right equipments. But for sure, for that, all of you need to be aware of our needs. There are doctors who just ask us what we can see, what we cannot see. But just a simple question, please. How much? What is the difference between what I can see between the two distances? There's just so much which during your researches you would want to know from our community. So our organization, like Mr. Verma just said, is working on inclusion. We believe in togetherness in the society from day one. We are sending students to mainstream schools so that they can be a part of the society. You can know us and we can know you. You actually could know our requirements in order to help us, and we know how to settle down in the society with all of you. Our organization, since the last 40 years, is working on an integrated model with for students with visual impairment, for students who have more disabilities, along with visual impairments, for students who cannot be sent to school because of their disabilities, but yet have the right of inclusion in the society. Unfortunately, like in the beginning, like I said, that awareness is the biggest problem which even today our society befalls. Even working for 40 years for this community, there are just so many times that we really need to tell people that we are not a blind school. We are not a school where blind children are taught away from the society. We are people who want to integrate the visually impaired into the society to make one society. For that, we have people like Mr. Verma who are continuously working on accessibility. We have a lot of role models who have reached the levels of the best of professors of the country, the best of CAs, CFAs, the best of photographers, the best of, you pick up the field and you get a visually impaired in it, not even in India, but also internationally. So yes, it is just, I always say that it is just a part of us, like we could never have controlled the kind of nose we have got, the kind of skin we got. Likewise, we cannot control the kind of vision we got, the sight we got. But definitely, all visually impaired do have a vision. So for that, I would also want to conclude with a request that all of you working for the visually impaired community must pay a visit to organizations like ours who are working at the grassroots level to know about more about us. That's a place where you would actually get tons and tons and tons of examples to do your work on, to know what actually is best for us and what you can excel with. Thank you.
Thank you, Meenakshi. That was excellent, and the insights, and you have spoken from your heart, and your message has reached us. In fact, we felt that this is the need, and we are very happy that you have given us an open end. There are so many optometry students and even faculty whom we would request you to visit your center once, because unless they know what to be done, they can't talk about it to your patients. We've had a lot of stories where the opportunities were not given and been missed out because yes, they were not considered the way, or that could have been, because when we sit in the clinic and when we examine a visually impaired person, we are not actually thinking in a totality of his lifestyle, his environment and needs. Most of what books are teaching us is the visual acuity chart and the hardcore black and white contrast and then bringing into it. That's not low vision, friends. That's not what is low vision. Low vision is go beyond the clinic. In fact, there are certain recommendations now that when you examine a low vision patient, you don't have to enter into your clinic. You need to enter into his world to actually see what do they need. And the needs, there are enough of assistive technologies, and we all need to know about it and refer. And as in our survey, knowledge, attitude, awareness, everything was very, very poor. And only 7.4% people knew where to refer for the rehabilitation. That was the sad story about it. So I think, open up to the forum. Oli, you have a lot of questions and visitors, which are, I hope, listening to us.
I think Ajit sir
and
will be
Ajit,
presenting
sir, would
something.
you like to add in your comments?
Yeah. Oli, can I come in?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hi, it was very nice to hear to Meenakshi and hear the comments like from a visually impaired point of view, the doctors are God for us. And I come back to this point that we mentioned, that we are talking about the low vision practice in 21st century. And I've been practicing low vision for over 30 years. And this is a subject which is close to my heart. And I like to share my experience of what exactly, how the low vision has changed me as a person. I will give you a small story. I was in Dehradun where I was visiting my branch. And the time we closed at 9 p.m., I decided to take a taxi way back to my hotel. And there was no taxi available, so I could only find a shared taxi. So I said, okay, let me take a chance. And I took that taxi. And on the way, I was stopped by, two people who wanted to share the taxi. The taxi driver put them in, and we started moving. And one of them said that I have to go that place, please drop me there. And the taxi driver knew exactly where he was to be dropped. He said, fine, sir, I'll drop you there. The time passed, we started talking because since they were both, one was totally blind or other was, very heavy or high visual impairment. We were talking and it was my interest. So after some time, we realized that the guy who was blind, he suddenly stopped the taxi. You have crossed my station or crossed my stop half an hour back. So I was a bit surprised that how this blind fellow sitting next to me knows where he was to be dropped. And I couldn't resist myself but ask him exactly, how did you know exactly that your stop has gone half a kilometer back? And the taxi driver also realized, yes, so sorry, I was talking, so I was listening to what you're talking. So I forgot that, yes, you are right. So the guy replied that half a kilometer away from me, from my house, is a temple. And around 9 o'clock, you have people ringing the bell in the temple. And that's how, when I heard the temple, the bell ringing, I told you to that this is my place. I'm half a kilometer further from that stop. That moment, I started thinking that there is something more to low vision, which I've been practicing from last 30 years. And what exactly I'm doing is not the low vision, what people have developed today. All my practice, which I did 30 years back on optical aids, non-optical aids, stand magnifier, hand magnifiers, looked to me like I was wasting my time. And I started looking at this subject in a very passionate and a different manner. And the two things I learned, first was, as an eye care professional, we have to change our attitude. We have to remove this word from our vocabulary that nothing can be done to this patient. Because there is always something that can be done to every patient. It is just that our attitude has to change. That is number point two. We have to see that we don't address them as blind, because as Meenakshi said, most of us have certain residual vision. The only thing is just that we need to learn to exploit, to make use of that residual vision, and always address this population as maybe a visual impairment, rather than calling a blind and putting them to blind school. If you look at the surveys done by blind school, you will find 50 to 60% of these children, they have quite a bit of residual vision. And what we are doing there is we are preparing them to go blind one day and make their learning. And these blind schools, which I visit very often, I find that the teaching there is more them to become blind one day and start teaching them on Braille. This is very painful for us. This is not something as a society we need to tolerate. As an eye care professional, we ought to come out of this. And there's something which I realized, that we feel very pride that, or we feel ourselves very proud that we try to dispense a very expensive hearing aid, and we feel the expensive hearing aid are very good for the patients. But let me tell you, the story is something else. The problem is our knowledge of the product is missing. We don't know what exactly we need to do to meet the need of the patient. I'll show you a small incident of a patient. One of the patient was sent to by a friend ophthalmologist close by. He said, Ajit, just see what you can do. He can't afford much, and he is a good friend of mine. He's lost retinal detachment, lost vision in both eyes, can't do his work. He's a writer. And when I started checking, first of all, we make a big mistake that we spend a lot of time doing the refraction of that patient again, not trusting what exactly your colleague has done. So forget that. Learn, understand the patient's need and find solution. Miss certain changes in your lifestyle, changing in certain lifestyle will make a lot of difference. And when I heard his requirement was simple, I'm talking of something of 6 years back, he said that I'm a writer. I just need to write something on the keyboard, which I can't see. And no glasses were able to help him, and no glasses were able to, no magnifier was able to do the need. I thought about it the whole night. I tried to, what can I do? What can I do? Looking at these devices which comes out at a very exorbitant price, he was not able to afford. I thought of simple thing, that why don't I make a sticker for him so that he can paste on his simple device, simple keyboard, and make those readable. And when I put that, he was happy. He said, fine, my life is changed. Simple lifestyle changes. And then I started to realize what my patient taught me in Dehradun. Next day I visited NIVH. You know, that's the only institute for visually biggest institute in India at Dehradun. And I saw that there's a lot that I need to learn about low vision. And then I started understanding how these people were learning is they were totally depending on accessibility, which has not been taught, has never been any part of any optometry curriculum. The profession has moved. I was going through a book which was prepared by Vision 2020, adopted by Ministry of Health for low vision in 2013. I don't know if you have seen this book. It guides you exactly what kind of aids you need to dispense for what particular patient. But then if you go through this, you realize that all the teaching is obsolete today. What you exactly need for your patient is something they can make practical use of these devices in their life. And that thinking I want to share with you. I started looking at accessibility, reading a lot about them. And then I realized the biggest accessibility tool you have in your hand, which every one of you have, but you're not explored its potential, is your mobile phone. I'll tell you how. And I'll tell you which way we can use this. Prashant has told in a very subtle way, because he is using it day-to-day basis and he feels that every one of us knows. But unfortunately, not many of us knows what are the potential this mobile has for us. I use this iPhone, and I'll tell you how exactly I use this phone to meet the patient's need, because if I give it to one suggestion to my patient, they are happy. This phone, most of the phone, they have an accessibility tool. And the accessibility tool can be achieved, you can reach there, and what you will see. First function of the accessibility tool is voiceover. Understand what voiceover means. Voiceover means that if you activate your voiceover, anything you touch, it speaks. So if I'm a blind, if I'm a visually impaired, Mobile phone only has one touch button on your phone, which is called your home button. Switch it on. Anything you touch, if it speaks, so a person with visual impairment knows what he's touching. So does he need to see for this? No. So when a call comes to you and you activate your voiceover without looking at it, you know who is the caller because you have activated the voiceover. Coming back to the next function, which is called zoom, most of us have been looking for low vision magnifier, hand magnifier, stand magnifier. Go and look at read the zoom, what it says. Zoom is something that if you want to read your email, activate your zoom and it will magnify 3 to 5 times. It will see, you can see anything, which is if you switch on your mobile camera and take a picture and activate your zoom, you can magnify it to a point of at least 10 to 20x magnification. Do you really need a magnifier? If a patient comes to me, I tell them, are you using a phone and you need to see something to read? Why don't you use your zoom? Activate your zoom and you will see it. Then there's something which I would suggest is the zoom after zoom is the magnifier. And magnifier, what it does, if you want to take a picture of any object and click it, but you will say that you are talking to a visually impaired and you ask him to take a picture. There are applications which tells you how to take a picture, how a visually impaired person can take a picture by just vibrating it. If it is vibrating on the right, it means you have to move your telephone to the right. If it's vibrating on the left, you have to move your phone on the left. And if it stops vibrating, it means the picture is in the focus. It will tell you to turn your phone clockwise or anti-clockwise. So all these options are available whereby you take a picture of the object and magnify it to see it to your magnification you can read. Do you really need stand and hand magnifiers? I've stopped selling those the moment I started looking at all these accessibility tools. You don't need a hand magnifier, you don't need a stand magnifier. What you need is a bit of practice of those. If you use zoom, and I'll tell you, a point can be magnified to fill up your whole screen. The magnification will be at least 1,000 times. Try and do it today. You will be surprised at how much magnification you can get without any device. I'll come to the next accessibility there. You have an option of, I was wondering how visually impaired reads. There's an option called speech. Activate the speech screen. And when you activate the speech screen, you just point your 2 fingers down, it will lead you the whole email. You don't need to look at what WhatsApp is come. You don't need to look at what email is there. Just activate speech screen and you will be able to read what the screen is all about. Do you really need vision to read your email? No. You have provisions in this to magnify, make all the letters as bold. You have the provision in the accessibility tool to make the contrast. You can change the contrast if you can't see from white or black, change black or white. There's option of other colors also. So all this accessibility tool can help your patients and help yourself to do your work. You will say, how it will help myself? I'll tell you how. Every phone has an assistant, I use it as a digital assistant to send my all communications. Most of you, if you see my WhatsApp messages, they're very long. Most of the time, my emails are very long. I'm not typing those. I'm just speaking to my phone. I'm speaking to my assistant to type my messages. I can demonstrate it to you. I can tell you how exactly it works. Okay, simple thing. It will take you very long time to find out where is your WhatsApp or where is your email. For me, it is very simple. I'll just press this here, WhatsApp Purnima. It says, what do you want to say? It's saying, what do you want to say? I want to send her a message. Listen, Purnima, it's nice talking to you. I'll appreciate your support and thank you very much for participating in our activities and supporting our scientific sessions going on every alternate day on this webinar. Thank you.
Here's your WhatsApp message. Ready to send it?
Please send.
Okay, it's sent.
My message is sent. If Purnima is somewhere, she has received my message. That's how I write my emails. And you can see who works faster, my eyes or my phone. I don't use my phone for any of the command. I use my assistant. What is the temperature today outside?
The high temperature today will be 32 degrees.
Highest temperature will be 32 degrees. What's the temperature in Rome?
The high today in Rome will be 16 degrees.
Highest Rome temperature will be 16 degrees. I can find out who is the president, who is the past president, who is the, what is optometry, what all, just by this click, one answer. I don't need to open my phone. And which this power every one of you have.
Unlock your iPhone first.
Only thing is this, we have forgotten, we don't explore our potential. And how I learned is because of my visit to Dehradun one night. I met him and then I realized the whole world is entirely different. If you learn these techniques, you will find you don't need to use your vision. You don't need to sit on and talk about digital. We say that stop digital screen. Why do you need to look at your screen to send email messages, WhatsApp? No, it's outdated. That's not the way optometrists should practice the profession. I'll come to you what exactly how other Prashant told us very clearly. There's so many applications. If I ask any optometrist, do you know any application which you can give it to your patient? Most of them don't know because we have just been stuck to our old method of teaching, which is not where low vision practice is today. When you meet the need of these patients, the expectation, their needs are entirely different. What they are looking for is something that what you have to provide. What Meenakshi said that you have to see what we need and we need to understand the need, and understanding the need means looking at each and every need from their point of view, not our point of view. I'll talk to you about few applications, and these applications which I think I've divided them by product wise, and this is what I just want to share with you all. I talked to you about, Prashant mentioned it briefly, there's an app called Aira. I'll mention to you before that, there's an app called Be My Eyes. You know what Be My Eye is? It's just like suppose I'm going to Chennai and I take a taxi and the taxi guy doesn't understand my language, which language I speak, but I know the way I have to go. So I connect my phone to that person and to tell and give my phone to the taxi driver that please explain me where I have to go. And my host tells my driver, this is the route you have to take and this is where you have to drop him. So he has become my ear, the taxi driver. On the same concept, there is an application called Be My Eyes, where we, optometrists, ophthalmologists, society at large, people who want to feel passionate about their profession can enroll as a volunteer, whereby a person who has a low vision impairment, who has need of an immediate need at any time he's stuck, he will call you and he will call you for help. And these volunteers are needed in each and every languages. So we need is this language in every state of the country. So, but we need to be aware what exactly these people need. On the same concept, we have this app called Aira, which Prashant talked about. It's the same concept. Only thing is that these are they designate people or they volunteer, they take the help of the people who are professionals. They pay them. And the Aira is a paid app. But Be My Eyes is a free app. So what I want you to understand is, understand what exactly as a volunteer, as a part of society, we have certain responsibility to them and we need to participate in one of those as a volunteer. Not as an optometrist, but just enroll yourself, go open this app, just write it down because I'm not able to explain you in what detail they are, but no, Be My Eyes and Aira, Be My Eyes is you can, even in India, you can do it. Ira, I'm not sure, but I think it's more of the foreign app. So these are the two volunteer apps. The second app I will talk about is identification app. The few apps I'll talk to you about, the one identification app we have is to recognize products and colors, and which we call AI polyvision. You have your phone and you point out the camera to the object you want to know. Any person, may be sighted or visually impaired, can just point out and find out what is the product line, what is the color is, what he will describe the product, and you will know exactly what it is. It is used by sighted individuals too, because they don't want to use their eye, they don't want to put on the glasses, switch on the camera and point out, and you will know exactly what it is. So these are the certain applications which we need to know. Then you have this, there's an app called TapTapSee. TapTapSee is something, you just tap your camera twice, it will take the picture, read it out. If you want to stop, tap it again, it will stop. So you are able to see and you are able to recognize the objects in your surroundings. So these two apps, then you have this some applications like money readers. You can just read your currency, very easily available. And you have a similar for reading your currency is iNote application. Then there are few apps which I'll tell you how the blind population use about getting information. There's an app called Learning Alley, which is the largest audio books collection available free of cost. At the same time, you have iBlink Radio. iBlink Radio, which gives you the information, the entertainment, the latest thing, what is happening, and what the latest resource for blind population is. Now coming back to few applications which I have learned and which are very interesting is, one of the which has fascinated me and which I often use is Seeing AI. It's developed by Microsoft. It's a very AI-enabled app which you can just download free of cost. It recognizes the product, recognizes the color, reads out all the barcodes, reads out the text. Whatever is written, it will read out. It will recognize the person if it is already fed into your computer. Otherwise, it will describe the person, that this person is approximately in this age category. What he's thinking. The AI has enabled that whether he's the person in front of you is happy or sad or angry. Sorry, just 1 second. It's a very useful app. And this is what I say is the technology. How this app was developed, because there was a product which was developed by an Israeli company called Orcam. What's an Orcam? Orcam is a small device, just like this, small device which is attached to your frame of spectacle. What it does, if you put it on, or if the visually impaired or blind person put this on, and he points at the person, or he points at the book or the text, it will read it out. So it takes the visual signal of your finger to read the text out. It will again recognize the person because it's already fed into the screen, into the system. If the person looks at the wrist without the watch, it will tell the time. It will recognize the currency, recognize the products, recognize people around you. It doesn't need internet to work. The only thing is too expensive. I wrote about when I saw this product, I really liked the product and I wanted to find out the prices. I found out the price, and I wrote about on this on my Facebook. I got 2 calls that day, and they said they want to buy this. After realizing it's costing 3,40,000 rupees to a patient, I said it is at this price, but I would suggest that why don't you look at Microsoft Seeing AI. And when I told the person, he said that I wanted to buy something from you and you told me something which is free of cost. And I'm so happy with this product, what you have told me about. And he is using CI just without any cost. So what we need to do is this, today we have to get out of that. I don't mind if you're in a private practice, charge good consultation fee from your patient. but give them something which is affordable, reasonable, practical for them to use. Because I knew that even if I sell this product to him, after a few days, he will realize that there is something available once he starts reading about it. So have enough knowledge about products and various applications which are available. And most of them which I see is available free of cost. We talk about this cost, that cost. I tell you, you don't need a cost to set up your low vision. What you need a good knowledge to tell your patient for this of your problem, you need this particular application and this device. And most of them comes at no cost. Coming back to other products which I want to talk to you about. I'll just see if I'm missing anything. I talked about. Yes, this is something which is emerging technology in low vision, which is called Iris Vision. What is Iris Vision? Iris Vision is technology developed by Samsung. And when I read this, I became interested in it. But then when I saw again the cost of it, it was again too expensive. I said, no, we can't suggest this product to our people. We can't spend, we ask people to, because he doesn't see blackboard or he doesn't see something, to give him something for 2 lakhs, which may or may not work to his satisfaction. And so I started looking for cheaper options for this. And what I found, I'll tell you, this is where your Iris Vision is. It has a device where you open, you put your camera inside here.
Just lift it up a little more.
Yeah. Okay. Put your camera in this.
It's a little higher.
Okay, I'll just show you. You have to just attach it here. It will just go like this. Okay. The camera will be facing at this small space here. Am I able to do it?
Yes.
It has focal length which you can adjust from this place. You can see this 2 point here. You can adjust the PD of the patient. Put this on the patient's face. It has a strap which comes. I've removed it for demonstration. You put it here. You can see your TV screen at this distance. It draws the object from far as a virtual reality to your screen, which is just about 10 inches away from you. And I'm looking at it, how I can make this technology affordable. If you look at Google, if you look at Amazon, now we call them VR glasses. VR glasses, if you look at them, you can get them from 280 to 499. Almost at 500 rupees, you can bring virtual reality. This works for distance, this works for near, it adjusts your PD. Look for virtual reality glasses on your Amazon. There are softwares available, there are apps available, which again, I'm developing with a friend of mine to see that we can give them at a very, very low cost. This cost, like at this moment, I don't know the Samsung's price, but it's prohibitive at the moment that what we can suggest to anybody. But this will be available within 3,000 to 4,000, which we call them virtual reality glasses. Google all these applications which I'm talking about, and you will find that there's a whole lot information available on net on these glasses called Iris Vision or VR glasses or VR apps. They're all there. Where we are going from this? What is the new for us to know? And new, I will slightly talk to you about one disease. I don't know how many of you know about it. It's called ALS. What is ALS? It's amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. What happens in this disease is your all motor functions, all your nerves, all your muscles of the body, motor muscles, they start losing, they start degrading. And every day you lose your voice, you lose your eating, you lose your all walking, you can't stand. So what you are left is only sensory functions. And out of all the sensory functions, there's only one function which is available. Microsoft was given this challenge and they look at this. challenge, and they developed a device that how these people should move, because they have remaining, once you develop it, you have only life of 5 to 6 years after you have developed ALS. So they started researching and they said that you can't leave them lying at bed. So let's do something for them. And they developed a small cart for them so that they can maneuver their movement within the premises, small surroundings. And the application was they used their vision, not the vision, but the eye tracking. That when you look at there's a small screen attached to the cart. When you look at the screen, say move, it will move. But when you look at the brake, it will stop. So eyes are used as the tool to guide your navigation. So this is something which has been used by Microsoft. If you look at the latest version of Microsoft 10, Windows 10, you will find they are using this device so that only it recognizes your eye movements. It opens out any of the point it will read out that particular place which your eyes are focused at. So eye tracking is something new technology emerging which is adopted by Microsoft in Windows 10, and that's something will be the future of low vision in time to come. Instead of touching this device, touching that, whatever your eyes look at, it will read out. This will be the new future of low vision in time to come. Only thing which I feel is this, what is lacking is navigation. And we have so many navigation apps available in the market. You have GPS available, you have BuzzZip. BuzzZip is something which you attach to the stick, or what you call that cane, red and white cane. It has ultrasonic sensor that gets, because most of the people who are visually impaired, they can see where they're walking, but at the same time, they get hurt with the trees, leaves, trees, branches hanging low. Sometimes they bang up there's a truck standing, and they will walk, and they will realize that they are still able to move forward, bumping their head into the truck because of the distance. They can't see something higher the waist up. So the BuzzZip is something, a small attachment you can attach. And this project was taken by IIT Delhi. And it was very great that, IIT Delhi developed a smart cane for visually impaired, which is costing about 2,500 to 3,000 rupees. It was, I'm sure everyone is using that. And this is helping them in navigation. But what exactly is happening worldwide? This is my last talk on navigation, and I'll play a small video, and I like to close my talk after this, and just give me the opportunity to share my screen and run this video for you. Can you open that, please? Share me my screen.
Yes, sir. I'm doing the same.
It's a 2 minutes video. Enjoy this, and then we will take your question and answer. Rajesh will summarize.
So it's around, yeah.
You
can share now. You can share now.
Yeah, you need to just play it out. We can see the screen. Just put that play on it. The bottom cursor, just the play there at the bottom. Yeah.
Is it done?
Yeah. We can very well see. You can just need to press the play.
Okay, let me see if I'm doing.
The play is at the bottom of that row, sir. Just at the bottom. Or in the center also, or you can just play.
Did you know that there are about 10 million visually impaired people in the US alone, and 250 million people in the world?
A revolutionary technology for the visually impaired changes all of the rules.
Introducing WeWalk, a fully independent, safe, and social life for the blind is possible.
The difference between this cane and a white cane, the safety factor of it is the real deal.
A customizable ultrasonic sensor warns the user against unexpected overhead obstacles with vibrating motors on both sides.
Sometimes troublesome to constantly have to take out my phone, look at my Google Maps. ask for directions from somebody to double check, am I in the right place?
Turn right. Turn right. Arrived at destination.
With integrated apps connected via Bluetooth, such as Google Maps, you can use your smartphone without taking it out of your pocket, which leaves one hand free. A touchpad on the White King enables the visually disabled to control the smartphone in the way they are familiar. All the developers can build an integration for the WeWalk device. In the near future, more smartphone applications will be integrated with WeWalk. Voice assistant or ride-sharing apps are just a few examples to begin with.
WeWalk has allowed me to walk with much more confidence and feel like I am much more safe.
It's part of the game. I come out and I play it every day, and I love it. That's what keeps me alive. I love socializing, dealing with people.
The world needs more people like them who will create breakthrough innovations to make the world a better place. The least we can do is to give our support. Alone, they can do so little. Together, we can do so much. Join the movement. We walk together.
So guys, we need to work together. We need to see that we are working with them. That's why I call this topic patient-centric approach, and that is what we need to adopt. There's a challenge for optometry institutions, challenge for optometry students, that this technology is at cost. Can we integrate our smart cane with our mobile phone at a very, very low cost? Let's see what we have a lot of enthusiastic people who would like to do this work. When I was in Lotus, I was a student, and at that time, electronic devices were costing 2 lakhs rupees. I developed a small prototype as my project of my master's at just a cost of 1,200 rupees. It is still with them. I'm sure that they will have in their archives. So please join us and walk together and see how we can change the practice of low vision in 21st century. And we need your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ajit sir. And I think it was excellent. No wonder now we understand without typo errors, how do you get into those long messages?
At the end of sending the message, sometimes I realize that I've sent it wrong. Then I'll write at the bottom, I'll correct it. Because
I was really doubting, and I was like, you don't even get into a computer vision syndrome, which we all are like every day into the online messages.
We all have to try it, because the phone has if you even don't use that, it has a signal for dictation. You can dictate what you want to send.
Yeah.
It has another features which you can customize for your own. But I feel that my pronunciation or my voice is very much receptive. It doesn't make a slight mistake. I'm sure Purnima, if she's in the crowd, she has received my message without any error. And you can understand if I will write it, how much time it will take me.
Yeah, very much.
This is what we need to change.
I think it was amazing presentation, and there is a lot more to learn. Even I would say, when somebody just commented that, ma'am, we read your books, I said it's outdated. It's totally out of the flow now, and I myself do not prescribe. Of course, my textbook questions and text paper may be based on it, because we're still talking about the basics in it. But excellent, and thank you, Meenakshi and Prashant. We would like you to add comments. Oli, we have covered a lot of time today, and we would quickly take up some questions. I know there may be many, but if you can just bring in those questions.
Thank you.
Meenakshi and Prashant, we would like you to unmute also, so that we can simultaneously answer into it.
Yeah, yes. So I'm available, and thanks, Dr. Bhardwaj, for the excellent presentation, for really emphasizing the need to adopt these assistive technology tools for everyone, not just the total blind, but people with low vision also.
Absolutely. Oli, questions?
Yeah, that was a completely eye-opening session by all of you. Thank you for the session. Now, I think Ajit sir answered all the questions that were raised about different apps or different mobility aids that the people wish to know about. But Ajit sir excellently explained all those points. Now the answers which left or the questions which are left is for Mr. Verma is, how to make a visit to different NABs? What are the protocols available?
Yes, so it will be good if you call us beforehand, the NAB nearest to you. Of course, during this lockdown period, yeah, most of the centers are closed, but afterwards, it's good to call. Otherwise, people can just even come during working hours, like including Saturdays, and come and visit. And yeah.
Great. Ajit sir, wish to add.
I would appreciate, I'll encourage all optometrists to adopt or to visit the blind school in their vicinity. You will learn a lot.
Yeah.
I make it a point, I know Meenakshi personally because my son Rahul keeps on going there. I keep on going there. Last time, and they may have certain different set of need which people don't know. Last time I visited her about 2 months back and she told me, I said, what is your immediate requirement? She said, exams are coming. Our children are going into integrated school. We need certain volunteers who can sit, who can write the exams for my blind or visually impaired students. Sometimes the needs are entirely different and it was so easy for us to find those volunteers. So please visit your school close by. Whenever I go to Dehradun, I visit an IVH. Any place I go, I just make sure that I see that blind school in the vicinity and see exactly what children are doing. And it gives you a lot of motivation, lot of opportunity to learn from them because you get to know the exact need, what the child is. You observe them for a few minutes and you will know that this is the area where you can help. So please visit to the school.
Thank you, sir.
I think that we will certainly, make it a part of it. Ollie, any more?
Correct. Yeah, next one is how to set up a rehab center by help of NAB. If some optometrists are coming forward and start a rehab center, are there any option that collaboratively it can be set?
Prashant and Meenakshi would like to take that up.
Yes, so we are happy to share all our learnings. Recently, we set up this Beyond Eyes resource center. Say, for example, if people want to set up a similar center, we can share the list of all the products that we procured. We can train people in using various assistive technology devices, and of course, without cost. So, I mean, we are welcoming organizations and people for partnerships.
Thank you. That is excellent. I think it's definitely making a new beginning for many. And as I said, the challenge is we have to look at India as a whole, and we have to reach every region. So there are people today who have joined us from the remotest of place today in the country. And if they are listening, we would be happy to bring in. Any more questions, Ollie?
Last one is not a question. One of my colleague, Mr. Sachin Gupta, wished to contribute for the Delhi NAB. He pledged that he can assist with 3 customized ocular prostheses if somebody is in need. So, Mr. Verma, if you allow us, then we'll connect with you, Mr. Sachin, later on.
Yes, please. You may please connect him to us through by email or phone. So,
thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for giving us the permission. Now I would like to invite Rajesh Vadda sir to summarize today's talk. It has been a long time today. Yes, Rajesh sir.
Thank you, Oli. And right, starting from Professor Monica to Mr. Prashant to Ms. Meenakshi and then Ajit sir. I would not add too much because this is a lot of wisdom. We are going home after this wiser and with more food for thought and a new perspective. Thank you all those who have presented, and thank you all those who have joined in and supported us in this. And we like our attendance to grow more. We are putting in our best of efforts. Thank you everybody who spoke here and came in and gave us this knowledge.
Next webinar, if you can just inform about the topic.
Ajit sir.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Prashant, and I will encourage optometrists to come forward and contribute to their organization. NAB is a very trusted charitable organization and they need our support financially too. So we shared account details. We'll flash it again and appreciate if any of you or some of you would like to participate to contribute to the cause. Coming back to our next webinar, we have a very interesting session coming up day after, that's 24th of April at same time 6 o'clock, where we'll be joined by top ophthalmologists in the country from north and from west. They are the leading optometrists you could think of, who will talk about how optometry and ophthalmologist could co-manage, could combine, could collaborate in taking our practices forward. Post-COVID, there'll be a lot of challenges for both of us, and I feel there's an opportunity for optometry and ophthalmology to explore new areas and new potential. That's our topic on 24th. On 26th, we will be joined by a team of optometrists and a retina specialist. The optometrist, he graduated from AIMS. He took a lateral entry into OD program in New England College of Optometry, graduated from there. Today, he's a professor in the same optometry school. At the same time, he is a consultant at Leahy Eye Clinic, where he co-manages all the retinal diseases, diabetic retinopathy, and there are two of them. The retina specialist is a leading guy who is from studies from Harvard, Cambridge, and been in the best of the eye hospitals in US. And you will hear how the team works, and that's what we need to learn, how we can change the profession forward to such a collaborative teams in India. And that's where we will like to see all of you again on 24th and 26th. Thank you very much.
And sir, just adding to day after's our next talk, it will be also covering up telemedicine, which is the new concept for India. It has just been introduced in March legally. So the co-management between ophthalmologists and optometrists through the telemedicine and what does the law say, that's what we'll be covering up on the 24th. Please be with us.
And
thank you, everyone.
I think, Ollie, if you do not close in the, be a little more time for host, and we would request everybody to put in your comments or suggestions before you leave the meeting. And thank you so much. We've done, but please put in something in the chat box or YouTube lives. It will really help us to bring in, or any other topic which you feel we can come in. We already have next 4 lined up. We can bring in what can be coming in. Thank you again. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Oli. We forget to thank you because without you, nothing could have been done.
Yes,
thank
nothing
you,
will do. Thank you.
We'll come back to you again with our students and learn a lot more. Thank you, Ajit sir. Thank you, Rajesh sir.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Stay safe. Stay home. Thank you.
Window.